Guten Tag, WAP. This is Mr. Liniger. Let's make history today as we go over a new unit and start Unit 3, Day 1. We're going to go over 1750 to 1900. First 2 days, we'll be going over the Industrial Revolution. But let's get started with our daily punishment. It's hard to explain things to a kleptomaniac because they take everything literally. Key terms for today: mercantilism, free trade, Adam Smith, the Enclosure Act, the Second Agricultural Revolution, James Watts, the Industrial Revolution, Edmund Cartwright, Spinning Jenny, Flying Shuttle, the Spinning Mule. We're going to go over the major economic ideologies in Western Europe by 1750, the causes and effects of the Second Agricultural Revolution, and causes and effects of the First Industrial Revolution. Let's get started. So, as far as the ideologies go, you should know mercantilism. Mercantilism was the predominant trade by 1750 until capitalism surpasses it. Mercantilism believes that the mother country can make the most money, where they make the colonies trade with their mother country. They put tariffs on foreign goods, so the colonies only trade with the mother country. Also, colonies are supposed to just be there to produce raw resources, and a nation's wealth is seen by how much precious metals they have, like gold and silver. Mercantilism are things like Britain before the American Revolution at some points where they did like the Stamp Act and the Tea Act. There is going to be a movement in England to support free trade where they get rid of tariffs and allow countries to trade with whoever they want. These people, like Adam Smith and David Ricardo, argued that free trade benefits everybody because the countries could specialize in something. And if you have free trade, people and countries are able to trade with whoever they want, and it makes them wealthier. You should know Adam Smith. He's the one that wrote The Wealth of Nations. He's considered the father of capitalism, the idea that the government should not be involved in the economy. This right here shows a map by trade in the 1750s. And if we look right here, trade has gone completely global by 1914, by the end of this unit. It is globally connected now. Let's start off with the Second Agricultural Revolution. The first agricultural revolution, which we talked about before, was the Neolithic Revolution, where people learn how to farm. In the Second Agricultural Revolution, there's going to be new farming techniques, which is going to allow for more subsistence farming, for more food crops being produced. This is going to begin in England, but it's also going to occur in Western Europe, America, and Asia. It's an outgrowth of the Columbian Exchange. New food crops are being grown all over the world. The scientific revolution, we're going to have new technology. In the Enclosure Act. The Enclosure Act was a law in England, and what the Enclosure Act did was it forced farmers who have lands to enclose it. They had to put barbed wire around their land. They can't just have cattle free grazing. Before this time, people would do free grazing for their land, where their animals might go outside their land territory to graze and to eat stuff. There used to be communal land in some areas where people would share the land to feed their animals. This is going to be more capitalistic. You own only this certain amount of land. For a lot of people, when the Enclosure Act happened, they're not going to have enough land to be able to survive. So people are going to sell their small areas of land and to farmers. And you're going to start to see some big business farmers that own lots of land. And these people that had to sell their land, they're going to move to the cities and become the first factory workers. For the Second Agricultural Revolution, we have new food stuff, new styles of crop. We have a new selection of cattle. We have new agronomy about how to breed cattle. New technology and sciences applying to farming. From peasants to farmers. So the process of becoming farmers began, while social began with technology and science. You have new types of agronomy and animal husbandry. When you're breeding animals, you're breeding specific type of animals. This goes with the whole genetics thing, which was discovered during this time with Mendel. You have new farming machinery, like new types of thrashers, reapers, seed drills, and tractors. We're going to start to have more machinery instead of just muscle and animal power. Barbed wire is going to lead to enclosure. This is also going to be the time of the transportation revolution. There's going to be new types of transportation during this time. You have trains, new types of ships, like steamships. Uh, Grain silos are going to allow you to store grain. Refrigerator ships are going to prevent food from spoiling. You have canning, which allows for the preservation of food, and food processors. All this will allow food to be able to last longer. Let's talk about the first industrial revolution. There were precursors to the first industrial revolution. Before the first industrial revolution, most people did their industry in something called the putting out system or the cottage industry. That's where people would work like in their houses, and they would work individually. It wouldn't be like a large scale industrial revolution. You'd work in your house and you would like turn your cotton into textiles. The Industrial Revolution is going to make this a large scale thing where people are all brought together in one type of factory. The first Industrial Revolution begins in England. It's going to be river based. They're going to use the current of the river as a form of energy to like spin the water wheels to turn the cotton into textile clothing. There'll be mechanization of the factories. There'll be production of vast quantities of goods. And doing this on a large scale with multiple people is going to decrease the cost of the goods. Begins in England in the 18th century. Coal will be critical to early industrialization. After rivers, people start to use coal as a form of energy also later on. Overseas colonies will provide raw resources and raw materials, which will be used in the factories. Like, for example, they'll use things like cotton, sugar, tobacco, and those things will be turned into finished products in the factories. The demand for cheap cotton is going to spur the mechanization of the cottage industry. The spinning jenny is created in the 1770s. The spinning jenny is going to be on by the river, and it's going to use the current of the river to spin the cotton and turn it into yarn. There'll be other things like the flying shuttle, which will turn the yarn into fabric. The spinning mule will also be used to turn the cotton into yarn, and the water-driven power loom will turn the cotton into yarn as well. James Watts is going to create one big invention in 1765, the steam engine. The steam engine will be used for transportation and a form of energy to power the first industrial revolution. Iron and steel will also become very important to the industries with continual refinement. Coke will replace charcoal as a principal fuel. In 1856, they'll create a new form of steel called the Bessemer steel. It's going to be cheaper and stronger steel. In the 18 and 1900s, you're going to have the second industrial revolution, which we'll talk a little bit more about next class. The second industrial revolution is going to be more engine-based. It's going to have more of the factory system, and it's going to have more of the idea of division of labor. The transportation will dramatically improve during this time. This is called the Transportation Revolution. We'll have George Stephenson create the first steam-powered locomotives. We'll have steamships, steamboats on the rivers. We'll have railroads, clipper ships, canals, turnpikes. We'll have some pretty famous canals during this time. Erie Canal. At the very end of this unit, you'll start to have things being contemplated like the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal. This right here just shows some of the different yarn producers, cotton producers that we talked about. Some of the images during this time for the cotton production. And that's all. That's all I have for you for today, guys. That was the first Industrial Revolution. Next class, we will go over the second Industrial Revolution. Until next time, deuces, deuces, deuces.